Hello there, my name is John Shepherd from Hemsley Fraser, and I'm here with Daniel Godfrey, also of Hemsley Fraser, and we are talking today all around data insights, communication engagement, and all things related, and specifically how that impacts hybrid learning. So Dan, welcome. If we could just start with you just giving us a quick explanation of your role.
Hi, John. Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, of course. I'd love to explain what it is that I do here. So my official title is Data Insights Partner. Now, in a real world, what does that mean? It means that I'm Chief Storyteller. So I work with clients to help them understand exactly what's going on. So not just looking backwards at data, which is what data used to be used for. What we now look at is what's gone on. We're planning for the future. We're helping them with key decision making. So really, we've evolved with the times. So that's what my current role is. It's really helping define success stories and demonstrate success across a multitude of programs.
Great, thanks, Dan. And we are going to start just looking back over the last 12 months. Could you tell us what insights you've seen, what trends you've seen with regards to the data and engagement with learning that Hemsley Fraser offers its clients?
No, of course. It's been, obviously, as we all know, it's been an interesting, challenging 18 months or so, adapting to working from home. However, we've adapted really well. People across all our client base, their staff have adapted really well and taken virtual learning on board really well. And now that's really promising now. We're now moving to the hybrid working environment, and it's taking that next step now. How do we get to that next step with the learning that we've taken so far? So for instance, most of us know what it's like to work in an office. Now working from home, what we found is after the initial stages, people are actually very efficient working from home. They can work in what's more suitable to themselves. They can adapt their working day around how they are as a person and what works out well for them. Now, what particularly we found with this is that people are super busy, very like reorganizing the days all day, something new will come in. So we've got, and then they'll just reschedule, they're constantly reprioritizing their workloads. So how do we use that? How do we utilize that information? So what we've been able to do is look at providing people reasons to reprioritize in their favor. In the learning, people want to learn, it's just finding the opportunity to learn. So we need to find a way of communicating and engaging with them in such a positive way that they can do that. So ways in which we've been effective in doing that for a number of ways. One is providing relative content, in relation to what people's jobs are. So for instance, managers sharing content is hugely beneficial for engagement. So if your manager is sharing something with you personally and saying, hey, look, we've got this learning content, we've got a project coming up next week. I feel that if you look at this, really engage with it, it's going to be really beneficial to the success of our project. I know if my manager shared that with me, I would find somewhere in my priority list to put that in because I know it's going to help me with my workload. So it's making sure that people do that, because alternatively to that, what we found is generalized messages are coming in. People look at it and go, hey, that's pretty interesting. That might be helpful for me moving forward. But the problem is at that moment in time, they're busy. So what they do is they reschedule what they're doing. Well, they think, can we reschedule what I'm doing? No, I can't, but I will come back to that at a later date. Unfortunately, because our schedules are so busy, lots of other priorities come in, the later date very rarely comes. So one of the things that we've realized and that we've adapted, obviously you, John, know as well as anyone, because you do this with me, is that we provide multiple opportunities. So it's not just the first key. If you think about them as these shares, these engagement, whether it's through Yammer, whether it's through the hub, like digital hub, whether it's through emails, however you're communicating, sending the one doesn't work. We need to send multiple follow-ups, not enough to overload people. We like to do it in a harmonic way so that people are expecting it. It's like, oh, there's my other opportunity to go and check this out, rather than, oh, it's gone, or, oh, that's just too much. I'm just going to put it into a folder and never look at it ever again and divert it. So it's managing that balance. And I think moving into the hybrid world, which I guess was, the original point, is that it's creating a one world environment where people know what they're doing in terms of learning and accessing learning, whether they're at home or whether they're in their office. So it's having platforms that allow that same mechanism. So they know, oh, I need to access these documents, or I need to access some training on this. They know where it is because it's the same place whether you're working from home or whether you're in the office.
Perfect. And is there anything around that you've seen, Dan, that will apply going forward in terms of sort of the format of assets, the type of assets, the type of content? Is one more popular than the other, or is it slightly more nuanced than that?
Well, unsurprisingly, it is slightly more nuanced than that, John. So the reason for that is, people learn in different ways, as we all well know. And God, we all work in L&D, we know that. But it's not even that. It's people, particularly when people work from home, people work differently from home. So different assets help different people. So some people like podcasts, so they can listen to that while they're making a coffee or having the lunch or something. They can take that on board. Some people like PDFs. I wouldn't, it's not me, but some people, when they go into meetings, they find them, not as exciting, or it's not as relevant as it needs to be. So PDFs and infographics and our fluid books work particularly well in those scenarios. So it's providing different formats for different people to be able to consume, not just how they learn, but how they organize their day. So I would say, make sure that your portfolio has a real mix of content, and even your topics have a real blend. So it's not just for the helping with the blended learning, but it helps people manage it through their busy workloads and the way that they structure their days.
Yeah. And obviously, you mentioned, a big part of your role is helping clients achieve a successful program, whatever that program might look like. And I know that, there's lots of variety amongst client needs and the kind of programs that we're offering. But is there a sort of methodology and approach that you sort of think works to get to this sort of effective hybrid learning situation?
Oh, well, 100%, John. It's yes, most definitely. We've done a lot of work with some of our largest clients over the last 12 to 18 months to try and really understand the best way of maximizing program success. And the way that we do that is we start with a partnership. So yeah, the data is important, communication is important, but it's the partnership approach. So it's working with the clients to understand their unique culture. How do you define their unique culture? Well, it is methodical. There are certain things you need to check. So what are the company's values? Most importantly, what is their vision for their program? How do they define success? So it's understanding those things, understanding what is their organizational structure, geographically, functionally, how does that work? How does that look? So when it comes to being able to adapt what we're doing and adapt the metrics and the communication channels, we know those things. Similarly, we need to understand what are their communication channels. Do they have social media like Yammer? Do they send everything through email? Do they have an engagement platform that send things out? We need to understand all those things, because success is going to be the future success is dependent on our ability to understand what the challenges ahead are. And as far as challenges go, these are other things that we need to understand. Or even if it's not with us, the client needs to ask themselves, in the last 18 months, what have been our roadblocks? What have been our challenges? Okay, it's really understanding what the root cause of those problems are to help them develop the strategy moving forward. Because that's all we're talking about, is we're looking at a future strategy. How are we going to get the most moving forward? So that's the first step, understanding the culture and what's going on. The next step is then understanding the metrics. So we need to understand the measurement metrics. So yeah, now we know how to define success. What are we going to use? What data is available to us to do that? So we have clients where we can use their HR system data. So we could be looking at, exit reasons for people leaving. We could be looking at internal promotions. We could be looking at salaries. Lots of different data that we can look at to see how hybrid working is being effective with leadership programs, because the whole way people manage is affected now by hybrid working. You're managing people working from home, managing people working from the office. As part of that, your effective development is training the managers to be able to deal with this and their productivity effectively. So it's essential that we can use HR data, because that's a really good driver or measure of how successful the program's been. So, that's one thing. We're going to look at live course data, virtual course data, how those are assessed. We can blend all this information together. We can find trends that are important and that can be effective. It can demonstrate success, because without the initial partnership approach, we don't really know what we're measuring properly. So rather than looking backwards and going, hey, let's measure this, or L&D, we want to see this engagement or that engagement, No, we want to be making sure what we're measuring is impacting the success profile of what we're trying to achieve. And then the third part, and they're all as equally as important of the other, is the communication. Now, John, you know all about the communication side because that's where your side of our partnership works, is understanding really what mechanisms for communication engagement are available and what would work best. So now we know the culture and the communication channels, what parts of our arsenal can help generate the message, push the message out, keep bringing people back. So the things, John, how successful influencer or champion or ambassador networks are, having people across the organization, not just in leadership roles, not just in HR and L&D roles, but operationally, commercially. It could just be people that have been in the organization for a period of time, people that embrace technology, that have influence, and embedding them into the program and having them push out content and sharing things and letting people know about the content. And that's how we reach people. So it's not just that, oh, there's another thing. People are actually seeing actual benefit, people that they trust, people that they know, telling them, hey, really, check this out. And that's where we see some of that benefit in there. There's lots of things that we do in communication. Look, people really love the fireside chats that we do. It fits in. You have the leadership team talking. People like to get to know the leadership better. They trust, in many cases, they trust the leadership. So seeing them and invested in that, not just it's on the side, but it's being endorsed by these people that they look up to. So there are lots of things from the communication side that fit into this three-prong or three-pillar approach. So really, the partnership understanding. It's also having the measurements in place and the comms. But the most important factor of all of this is that it's ongoing. All right, it's not retrospective. We don't look at data retrospectively. We use it to drive change. So the comms strategy, the partnership, things will happen in the culture. Something will happen. Unfortunately, things like redundancies, other things may happen. Shifting from working from the office to home, changing the hybrid model. Lots of things changes that can offset the culture and what's going on. And those are things that we need to understand to change the comms, change the metrics. And it's a constantly evolving success story. So we don't set the metrics and every quarter go tick, 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 brilliant, we're on track. It's constantly evolving the whole process.
And that's a really good big picture overview you've just given us there, Dan. It's like, that's really sort of insightful. But I just want to end, final question, with could you pick out just a few sort of essential things, some top tips, if you like, that need to be considered when taking this sort of approach? What sort of, whether it's pitfalls or whether it's things you should definitely do, what do you think are the key points?
Yeah, well, without going over the same ground, you really need to be thinking about the culture, and you really need to be thinking about the future. You need to be making sure that it's a living, breathing, adaptable program that you're putting in place, the measurement in place, the partnership. I can't underestimate how important that whole practice is to making sure of success. Remembering that, just because we set the goalposts on day one, they're not the same goalposts 2 years later. They shouldn't even be the same goalposts after the first quarter. We should be constantly looking to evolve those situations. I think also just making sure that, you've got the right blend of assets and playlists and courses that meet what you're trying to achieve. Always going back to what your vision and what your goals are.
Perfect. And I guess that sort of constantly evolving piece is really relevant when we're talking about hybrid learning, because hybrid learning itself is relatively new and that's evolving too.
You've hit the nail on the head there, John. Exactly. So we've learned a lot in the last 18 months, and we're going to learn a huge amount in the next 18 months. But even more so than that, it's not prescriptive. Everything we're talking about here isn't prescriptive. So just because it works for our organization or that organization, it may not work for that organization's direct competitor. Okay. Again, we all have different cultures driven by the fact we have different values, different organizational structures, different geographical things going on. So it's very much a case of, we've got a lot to learn that's coming up, but we can take heart from what we've learned already. Because to be fair, we know what virtual working's like because we're all experts in that now. And, most of us, 95% of us, were around before virtual working. So it's just bringing these things together, and it's how to adapt that within the organization's culture.
That's excellent. Dan, thanks very much. Lots to think about there, but thanks very much for sharing your insight. Really useful. Thank you.
No, you're more than welcome.